This conference will now be recorded.
And it's all yours, Mike.
Okay. Get started here right away with the 53 radios. They were 6-volt. They did not have the civil defense markings on the 53s and early 54s. There's a wonder bar at the top that will scan for channels that will come in. They're an AM only, and there's push buttons for the favorite stations at the bottom. The 53 radios was a combination of parts that Delco already had. Delco made radios for a number of other car companies. For example, the Wonder Bar on the radios was from a 53 Packard. The sheet metal basically was from a 53 passenger car, and the speaker and the amplifiers was from a 53 Pontiac. So they just kind of used what parts they had, not knowing how the new car was going to sell and everything. So they just used what they had to start making parts for the radios. The knobs you can see was used for 53, 54, 55. The speaker was on the right side of the dash. The top part of the speaker was black. Bottom part of the speaker was painted interior color. The antenna was a wire mesh fiberglassed into the trunk lid. The antenna hookup for 53 used a just a Phillips head screw without star washer. In 54 they added a star washer to kind of lock it in. The grounding for the antenna 53, 54 was a little different down onto the body where it went to the framework. You had a radio instruction sheet for the Wonder Bar radio, come along with the cars.
Hey, Mike, real quick.
Yeah.
Steve Simmons, your webcam is on. If you don't mind turning that off, I can't turn it off on my end. There should be a button somewhere that just says stop sharing. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Okay. In 54, somewhere in the middle of 54, mid to late 54, there was 2 dots put at the civil defense markings at 640 and 1240. There you can see them a little better in this this picture. You can also see the Wonder Bar up here. It was a plain bar with no imprints or anything on it. Here's the 54. The area right here where the screws tied in eventually got some star washers on them to help lock them in place. They screwed to a pad that hooked up to the screen. It was fiberglassed into the trunk. The amplifier was tube type. Also, the radios were tube types. The amplifier was mounted on the back of the speaker. The speaker was an 8-inch round speaker. All the radio and the amplifier ran off of the 6-volt system of the car for 53, 54, and 55 6-cylinders. In 55, basically the only difference in the radio was it was changed from 6-volt to 12-volt. That would show up on the tubes from the first number on the tube would be a 6 for the 6 volts. The first number on the tube for 12-volt would be a 12. 1956 basically was like the earlier ones, with the exception it had a bow tie added to the face right in the center. The knobs also changed. In 56, instead of just having dots, they had the civil defense symbols at the frequency areas. Mid 56 or sometime in 56, they changed from tube type on the amplifier to transistors. The radio itself was still tubes. That they were tubes until 1962. So it'd take a while for the radio to warm up before it would come on, but the amplifier would start up rather quickly. So you'd probably hear some static before the radio come in. There's a better close-up of the knobs for the 56, 57 radios. Starting in 56, the radio was actually an option. In 55, 54, 53, it was a mandatory option. It was listed as an option, but you couldn't delete it. However, they do say that possibly a few 55s did not come with radios, but starting in 56, you had to actually order the radio. If it was not ordered, you got a block-off plate installed where the radio was. There was a couple variations of this block-off plate. You can see here that this one was a straight line through. And if we went back to the back one here, you can see it's kind of got a starburst shape to it. When there was no radio, there was a cardboard piece put over the speaker area. Kind of some information on the cardboard piece there off to the right. In 1957, you can see that the main difference was Wonder Bar was engraved on the bar itself. '56, '57 antennas. The base unit was down in the trunk area. Excuse me. The bezel on the rear fender, you can see the difference from the original to the reproductions. The original was pretty much all solid around the bottom, where the aftermarket or reproductions are kind of open at the bottom. When the antenna is collapsed clear down, it's 8 to 10 inches tall. The bottom section does move up and down like 2 inches. When it's fully extended, it should be about 43 to 52 inches out. In 1958, the knobs and were changed. The Wonder Bar engraved up there should have white letters in 58. And there is a sensitivity switch right below the Wonder Bar. It was like a 3-position switch to kind of help bring in the channels a little better. By the way, this particular radio is a 61 or 62, because you can tell by the knobs here and also the indentations in the push buttons. They were flat from 53 up to 60 and 60, late 60. They started to put the indentations on. In 58, the escutcheons or the pieces behind was just solid black. There was no chrome trim around the edges here, which you'll see later in 58 and 59, 60 they had. There's a picture of that. You can see the pieces around the outside. There was a black plastic insert in here with tells you what the knobs did. 1959 and 60 radio, you can see it pretty much like the 58, with the exception of the Wonder Bar is now printed in black. You can see they got the chrome pieces around the outside edges. Speakers 58 to mid 59 had no bezels around the outside. '58 block-off plate, instead of having the bars across it or the starburst, they had the Chevrolet emblem attached to the front of the plate. These plates, here's the backside of it. The Corvette plates had the squares around here, or if you had a passenger car plate, it was just a round circle. Also, the backside was metal on the Corvette plates, and the front piece was aluminum wrapped around it, where the passenger cars was all steel. Picture the antenna pushed down. Antennas could either be notched about a ½ inch down from the ends, or they could be solid. Generally, there was evidently 2 different manufacturers, and they kind of had a difference in the way they did it. There was also a difference in the ball size. You can see the ball size was larger for the notched ones than it was for the unnotched. There's a picture of it mounted in the trunk. '61 to '62. As I said before, they started late '60 to put the indentations in the push buttons. You can see the knob difference for '61, '62 from the earlier ones. Picture of the knobs themselves. Block off plate, pretty much the same as the 58s. There's the speaker that has a bezel around it, starting in '59, '60s. Here you can kind of see the difference in the flat push buttons here versus the indentations in the ones here. With this turned upside down, you can kind of see the sensitivity selector switch right there a little better too. Antennas for '61, '62s was a little different than the earlier ones. You can see where the antenna hooks on, it's a lot different than the earlier ones. Some have a bow tie emblem here, the Ward with the number here on the flat areas. I don't believe all of them quite had that, the Chevrolet emblem on them. You can see the top mounting spacer, and the you can see this notch right here to tighten it up, like a spanner wrench type tool. The antenna retracted and masked full glare out. There's the difference in the mounting from '60 to '61. You can see the difference in the antenna base where they mount onto. Speakers change, or the radios themselves changed from '61 to '62. The transformer was along the side. Evidently, there was some issues with the vent handle, so they removed it from the side and put it to the back. Starting in '58 also to '62, the speakers changed from the 8-inch round to a 6x9 speaker. They also did not have the amplifier on the speaker base itself as it did in the earlier ones. Here's a picture of a 1960 radio. You can see the transformer and the excuse me, along the side there. And there's a picture of a 62 with a transformer mounted to the back side for the clearance. We'll take a break here for the C1s. Is there any questions or anybody got anything they can add?
Yeah, there's no chat questions right now, Mike, so if anybody wants to unmute and ask a question, go ahead. Do you want to take a minute break, Mike, to step away?
I just took a big drink, so I'll try and keep going. All right, we'll get into the C2s. You had a non-radio car. There was no punch out for the radio itself. It's just a blank panel. Early 63s was just an AM Wunderbar radio, and there was no bezel around the outside. This area was painted. There was not vinyl on it like there was later on. You can also see in this picture there's a sensitivity switch still here from like the earlier cars. The Wunderbar along this side with your favorite stations push buttons along the right side. In 63, they changed from just an AM radio to an AM FM. You can see this particular radio is the later one because it's got the bezel around the outside with the vinyl backing around on the console itself here. Here's a little close-up picture of the AM radio. You can see the sensitivity switch, Corvette embossed or engraved in the Wunderbar here itself. The push buttons themselves were flat. You can kind of see little grooves along the side here to kind of help grab. So when you pull them out and mark the station you wanted, it was a little easier to grab them. Backside with the heat sink. Starting in 63, they went to a totally transistor radio. The tubes was no longer used anywhere on the radio themselves. The speaker bezel or grill for the top of the dash. There's a picture of the grill on the dash. A lot of these do not fit very good. You can see some issues here with the way they fit. Not an uncommon issue. There's a picture of the speaker underneath the dash. You can see the speaker magnet was kind of a rectangular with rounded ends with a transformer on the edge or on one side of it. There's different radio instruction sheets for different years. I think I kind of went through them a lot better with the when we went through the glove box content in one of the earlier sessions we've done, so I didn't hit these too hard. Like I said before, AM FM was introduced in 63. You can see there's a slider bar on the left side in place of the Wunderbar. Up was AM, down was FM.
Hey, Mike, with the addition of AM FM, was that standard then once it came out in 63, or was that an option?
It was standard once they started doing it, but I'm sure there was a while where both was used. There is some question of whether you could get the AMs later in the year, whether they had any left, if you wanted to order that, but I really never found anything out definite on that. But for a little while, I'm sure there was both used from, in a range of VIN numbers. There's the heat sink, or the backside of the AM FM, a lot like the earlier AMs. They had cards that stuck on the knobs, and the very early knobs had a 60 mile instead of the 25. There is pictures of these with the 60 scratched out and a 25 imprinted above it. And here's one of the later ones with a 25 on it. Antennas were not power. They were a 3-section mast. Picture one retracted and one extended. As you can see, this is off of a 63 bow tie car here. So this is pretty much what they should look like. Close up of the mounting base and the ball. You can see the notches here for the spanner wrench to tighten it onto there. You can see the spacer, how it's tapered to contour of the body. Sorry about that. Here's a picture of the base and the different antenna tops. The mast, you can see that they're also with some notches around some of them masts on the early C2s. There's a difference in the way the antenna mounted from this was just an AM. The AM FM had an additional aluminum spacer or a mounting sheet underneath the body. In 64 and 65, you had a pocket guide that come with the cars. This particular one here is from a 64. They are dated in this area right here underneath my red dot. Inside of it, kind of giving you some stations and so forth. It's transmitting. You can kind of see if you were up in this area, there was not very many FM stations listed at that time. There's the instruction pamphlets that come with it. Another picture of the radio card that is attached to the knobs. Just another picture of the center part of the dash with no radio. This also has no heater. You can see the plugs in the place of the heater knobs. '63, '64, I told you was the AM FM for the slide bar. When it was pushed up, the AM was in green, the FM was in red. There is some places that say that all right, I'm froze up. Oh, now I've got an issue, people.
There you go.
Okay. There is some places, some places that say that the civil defense markings here was not used in 64, but about every 64 I've seen has had them on there, so I'm not sure about that statement. I've talked to a couple other guys that judge interiors on the early C2s, and they pretty much told me the same thing, that about all of them they've seen had the civil defense markings on them. Here's a picture of the lens with the AM, FM color coding. '65, you no longer had the red and the green for the AM, FM markings. Also, the knobs were changed. '65 was also the first year that actually the AM, FM tuner was all in one. In '63, '64, they pretty much just added an FM tuner and had it connected to the selector knobs. It was kind of a separate unit. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's kind of incorporated in the radio, but it was actually a separate unit. Just actually through the knob is how it was changed, where this 65, it was all one unit. Picture of 65 excuse me, knob. Here's a 65 pocket guide. You can see the 65 labeled right there. You can see the difference in the bezels here, how the originals are a lot longer than some of the reproductions here. You can also see a difference here in the black insulating spacer there. '65, '66 had power antennas. '66 radio, basically it's a lot like the '65. Knobs was the biggest change. There you can kind of see the grooves on the side to help pull them out for the selector buttons. Close up of the '66 knob. '65, '66, you had a antenna switch to run it up and down, mounted on the side of the console by the radio. There's a picture of a power antenna for the '65, '66. Pretty sure this was an aftermarket. That don't look quite right. '67 radio, knobs were changed again. Close up of the knob. '67, we went to a fixed antenna, 31 inches long. Mounting base. Okay, that's 60 or the C2s. So we got questions. I know we got a lot of comments, or everybody speak up.
Yeah, there's a question. Being that when radios were an option, they were most likely highly ordered. Was it pre-drilled? Was the body panel pre-drilled for all of them, and then they just plugged them if it didn't have a radio?
Not on the mid years. The C2s, I'm sure there was kind of an indentation in the back of the dash where it could be knocked out. But it was just a solid piece there that without a radio ordered, they just left it solid. It was not opened up.
Oh, sorry, I meant the antenna.
Oh, the antenna? No,
yeah.
There was no hole drilled. As far as I know, there was no hole drilled. That was drilled only with the radio option.
And then there's a question on slide 90 with the hex base. When was that switched?
65, they used the hex, I believe, on the power antennas. 66, 67 all had the hex base.
And then the Corvette power antennas, were those used on any other Chevy models?
Not that I'm aware of, but they possibly could have been, but I imagine they probably were kind of different from anything that would have been used in a passenger car type situation. Is there anybody else out there can comment on that?
And that's it for the chat questions.
Any comments or anybody got anything to add? I know there's probably some stuff I skipped over here, but not feeling the greatest. I'm probably kind of skipping through some of this kind of quick, but okay, we'll move on to the C3 stuff. C3, if you did not order a radio, had a block off plate. 68, the knobs were unique to 68. There was a change in the knobs, the way they were, some of them were painted, some of them were chromed. The numbers on the dial should have a greenish tint. The had two radio options. You had an AM FM radio and an AM FM stereo radio. You can see the stereo radio when it was stereo was received, it lit up here. The judging manual says in script letters, but after talking with Gary Bosselman quite a bit, we've come to the conclusion that they were block letters. They weren't script letters, so he's made a change to the judging manual on this. Gary, you got anything you want to add on that?
No, I don't.
But it seemed that I tried to find one with the script, and I got a hold of Gary, and the more we checked out, the only thing we could find was the block letters. And I think they may have been in white in 68, but I know later on they were in green. I'm not sure on the color in 68 for sure.
Terry McManman's brother-in-law has a very early 68. If I remember right, it's around a 300 serial number. His is a block script like your picture, and it is also green.
Green.
So, yes.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, before we get too far into C3, there's a quick chat question on C2s for the 65 to 67. If it had air conditioning, was there a low profile speaker that was used compared to the non-air cars, or are they all the same?
I'm not aware of a change in the C2s. I know there was some difference in the C3s, but I'm not sure on the C2s. I don't think there was a difference. There's somebody out there that can answer that. Speak up.
Hey, Mike, it's Andy Cabral. Yeah, there was a difference. There was a low profile speaker.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Yep.
I know there wasn't the C3s, but I guess I never went into the C2s to find that out. And like I said before here, and the knobs, there was a change. Some of these were chromed and some of them were painted, from what I understand. Is that right, Gary?
I can't answer that. I'll have to look at that.
Okay. Still had the hex dome on the bezel for the antenna mounted on in 68. '69, the knobs changed considerably. In '69, the back area behind the knob was smaller than the later ones. You could also see here that there was an area you could see the recess back in the console panel behind there, where in 70 and 71 that secondary went out far enough where it kind of covered that open area. There's the knob fronts for 68 or 69 through 71. You can see the greenish tint on the numbers, and block stereo up here when it's receiving stereo. '69, the antenna base changed considerably. Picture from the underside, the antenna mounting. The antenna mast itself, the base, the bottom of it. Here you can kind of see the difference I was talking about around the edges here, how narrow or how much open space here compared to here. There's a secondary knobs back in there was a lot larger in diameter. A little more information on the knobs, what they adjusted and so forth. You can also see on the earlier that there's a Delco down here. It was in script form on the lenses.
Hey, Mike, on slide 100, was there a grounding strip shown?
That's what this piece is right here.
Okay.
Speakers was at the top of the dash. You can see, sorry, the had a remote location or the mounting of the tuner and the amplifier. '72 to '75, the knobs were a rubber type knob with a picture of what the knob actually adjusted. It changed from the block letters when the stereo was on to a orange dot along the right hand side. Here you can see the Delco script along the bottom of the lens. That's a close-up picture of the knobs. Sorry, 74, 75. There was a difference in the this bezel right here from a coupe to a convertible. You can see here it's got a number listed for a bezel, and then it's got a number listed for the bezel for the convertible. The angle changed because of the body contour. I'm not sure which one is spaced thicker. I think the convertibles are thicker than the coupes at the back side. There's a picture of one versus the other. It looks like the spacing in this area is a little shallower on this coupe than it is on this convertible. There you can kind of see them a little better side by side. Another picture of the non-radio car. 76, the script went to a block form rather than a script form along the right-hand side as the earlier cars was. Sorry about that. 77, the dash console area went to a plastic rather than a metal as earlier, and it was the block off plate was kind of formed right into the plastic.
Hey, Mike, real quick on a 68, there's a question that they have a car that had speakers in the kick panels. Was that an option, or was that just somebody that added them behind the panels?
Gary, can you help? I didn't think they were in the kick panels, but
Actually, somebody just responded, said all 68s and 9s had kick panel mounted speakers.
Yeah, this is Scott Lindy. That's correct. All 68 and 69 were panel mounted. The dash had,
like they were in 70, 71.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mike, this is Gary.
Yeah.
All 68s were in the kick panels.
Okay.
So to answer that question.
Then another one, I'm not sure on the years, but would a stereo radio have 2 speakers and a non-stereo only have 1? And would the amplifier be different?
I believe all of them had 2. Just if you had the stereo, you could vary back and forth between the right and the left with the knob behind the front knobs. Is that right, Gary? They all come with 2?
That's correct.
And do you know the last year that a radio was an option?
Yeah, 77. Wait a minute. 79, it became standard. I'm coming to that.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's right here. I'll get to it here in a second. You got a different kind of booklet here for the stereo starting in 77. In 78, here's a AM FM with no stereo, base radio. Here's one with stereo. You can see the difference here. It's a non-stereo. It's just had an AM FM slide bar. With stereo, had the FM or had the stereo off to the right. 78 was the last year for an option. 79, the radio was standard equipment. $77 to $80 knobs. $77, you could also get the tape player. It pushed in this top area here, had an eject engraved in the right push button to eject the 8-track out of there. A 78 AM FM stereo with CB. Channel for the CB showed up in this area here. You also, there was, I believe, a couple different books in 78. This here is an AM FM stereo radio with a Citizen band transmitter, and you got paperwork to apply for your Citizens band license. This particular book was red, and it had AM FM stereo radio and Citizen band transceiver. It was more widely covered more radios, I guess. I'm not sure exactly which one was used with what radios for sure, but here you can also see again, you got the paperwork to apply for your license for the CB along with the book. '79, the cassette was added to the option list. '79 antenna was fixed, or you could get an option. Starting in '78, you could get an optional power antenna. In '79 to start with, '78, '79, the fixed antennas and power antennas was mounted on top of the fender. Sometime in '79, there was a recess added in the fender where it was brought down in. The difference in the power antennas, there was two different power antennas, 78 and sometime in '79 they changed. The mounting was totally different for the power antennas. This here is a fixed antenna. The AIM listing for the mounting of it. Here's a power antenna with, you can see it's flush with the fender. Here is the first style power antenna, and you can see all the mounting brackets that went up to the back of the wheel well portion here on this. In '78, if you got the CB, you had a load in the center of the antenna when it come out. I'm not sure about this, but at least 3 of 78 CBs, I have found this type of tip on there. I'm not sure if that is correct or that's all 3 of them had reproduction, but most of the ones had more of a barrel style tip on the end. There's the microphone that come with the CBs for the 78, 79, 80s, 81, 82. Starting in '78, you could get rear speakers. It was an option. And here you can see this antenna is mounted on top of the fender, where this is kind of recessed into the fender. Same thing on this power antenna. You can see it's kind of recessed into the fender. Here's the 2 different power antennas. This is the 78 mid '79. You can see the brackets was here, where the later ones, there was a whole different mounting system for them. I'm not sure. I read somewhere, I thought that there was possibly some mast antennas put on some of these 78, 79 cars. 79, it's a very good possibility that this may have happened because of the length of the run of cars. But for the most part, you will not see a 3-piece mast antenna on these cars. They should be a fixed antenna. I don't know if anybody can bring or got any more, they can shed any more light on this subject or not, but I could have swore I read somewhere where there was a few 3-piece mast antennas put on, but I went back and I cannot find where I read it. I need to write that stuff down, I guess, instantly when I read it. But if anybody can shed any light on this, can you speak up or talk now? Well, I guess I got no help there. Excuse me. Starting in 81, if you ordered anything other than the base radio that come, you got a what they call an ETR, electronic tuned radio receiver. And when you got this, the clock itself showed up in this area along with your numbers. And when you got the ETRs, the clock was no longer put up here in the gauge area. You got a temperature, oil pressure, or oil temperature gauge. Here you got an ETR with an AM/FM cassette CB, an 8-track, an 8-track with a CB. You could get that in 81. In 82, they did not offer the 8-track CB radio. The knobs for 81, 82. The booklet that come with the cars, with the ETR radios, you can see it's got that listed right up here. And here you can see the indentation in the fender, how they were recessed down in there on the antenna. There's a antenna tip for the later cars. Okay, questions or comments, or anybody got anything to add?
Yeah, there was a chat question that said in 79 to 82, if you can get a CB and a cassette radio. And somebody responded, said 81 and 82 had that option for both a cassette and a CB.
Yes.
And then another question, see, how and where did the CB microphone mount on a CB radio car?
It come from the from around the dash area where it come down. It was hooked kind of in the footwell area, up toward the front of the footwell area is where it come out from. I guess, for lack of better way of putting it.
Okay, and then there's another comment that says both our 81s have a 3-piece mast, and was that standard at that time?
The 81s had a 3-piece mast.
Yeah, that's what Gary Goodyear indicated.
Rick Coker, can you help any here? I know there was some 3-piece mast put on some of them, but for the what I found for most of them, they were a solid piece or a solid mast.
I think we're going to have to do some follow-up with Gary on that.
Okay.
Quick,
Yeah.
for the attendees, we have everybody's name or NCRS number. There's one person logged in as caller 1 without anything else. It could be they logged in with their computer and used their phone for audio, but if you know if that's you, just send us a chat message. That way we can confirm. And that's it for comments. Oh, one more. Was there a hook for mounting piece to hold? Was there a hook to hold the microphone when not in use? CB.
I don't remember seeing one. You remember, Rick? Because
There used to be, and I don't know if
there was some
installed. or if it came on the car, it was a normal clip, it would be on the right side of the console towards the front, pretty much
I've seen
under
a
the
couple.
dash.
I've seen a couple up there, but I didn't know whether they were issued like that because I've seen some without them too.
I'm not sure if which way they came.
It may have, that clip may have come along with it, and you may have been able to screw it on where you wanted to. Also, I'm not sure on that. I'll have to see if we can do some more research on that.
Everyone I've ever seen has been right on the right side of the console towards the dash.
Yeah.
I've seen one that was marked back closer to the seat. But that's the only one I've ever seen that way. Most of them are right up by the dash.
Okay. I hope that answers your questions. About the best we can come up with right now, but I'm sorry for all the coughing, folks. We'll get on here to the C4s. If you got a standard radio and a C4, I could not really get a good picture. This is a standard radio is kind of rare, almost as rare as a CB in 84s, 85s, but that's kind of what they look like. If you got a Bose in 84, 84 was kind of a unique year because the Delco Bose label was down here. You had a scan button here and a seek button here. And later on, this changed in 85. I'll show you the difference here in a minute. Here's the book that come with your Bose system. The speakers either had Delco or Delco Bose label on the front of the speakers. Here's an AM FM cassette. You can see it's got the Delco label right here in the middle. And here's an 85 Delco Bose. And you can see right here that the Delco Bose is up here, not down here. And the seek scan buttons are both right here on this side rather than apart like they were on the 84s. '84 and '85, you could get a CB option. I think in '85 there was like 16 of them made. This is a very, very rare thing to see. There's your microphone, or your, I guess basically the whole CB told you what channel you were on, and give your squelch and volume and everything right there on the handle or the microphone of the CB on the 84s and 85s. They had power antennas on the C4s. That was the bezel, was flush with the fender. The antenna tips for the C4s. You can see the aftermarkets had a kind of a slot right there where the originals did not. There's the Delco Bose emblem on the speaker cover. 87 to 89, this was the book that come with the Delco Bose. Your Bose speaker had an amplifier in each speaker. '90, '91 radios had gray buttons with orange lettering on them. This is a Delco cassette. Delco Bose cassette. You can see the difference in the lettering on it. And a Delco Bose cassette and CD player. That was the three options in '91. Speakers front speakers was kind of right down in the floorboard area. Back speakers was along the back hatch area. This was a vent. It was not really part of the speak. I mean, it was the speaker cover part, but it was a air vent, not a speaker vent. There's the Bose speakers for the front and rear. Convertible versus coupe. '91, the 3 radio options, or 92, 93, basically from 91 to 96. You had these 3 options, but in 82 and 90, 91, you had gray buttons with orange lettering. In 92, 93, you had black buttons with orange lettering. 94 through 96, you had black buttons with white lettering. Three different radios there, close up. Power antenna changed a little bit in the later cars as compared to the earlier antennas. The tip for the later cars. As I said earlier, the 94 to 96, you had black buttons with white lettering rather than the orange tint. Bose cassette versus the standard radio. Bose CD and cassette. '97 to '99 radios. The Bose with CD player. Standard radio with a cassette player. You got the optional remote CD changer. Bose speakers, the door. Speakers themselves. 99 to 2004, the lettering on the remote changers kind of changed a little bit. A hardtop rear speaker. Antennas. Convertibles had a retractable. Hardtops had a fixed. Coupes had the antenna in the windshield. '05 to '07 base radio. I don't have too much on these later ones, so I'm sorry about that. And with navigation, that's about all I got. So anybody got anything to add? Any comments? Or sorry about all the coughing today, but it's been a rough week.
Well, thanks for hanging in there, Mike. I don't have any chat questions, so if there's any other questions, you guys can unmute yourself. Here, there's one. Did any year C4 have a CD changer?
Yes, the later ones you could. Well, no, had it. They just had the CD player, didn't have the remote CD changer. No, if that's what they mean.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
This is Gerald Avery, 29089. I didn't get my point for class number 2. I was just bringing that up.
Okay.
29089.
089, yes, sir.
Okay, we'll look into that. What was your name again?
Gerald, Gerald, Avery, Avery.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Mike, thanks for another great presentation.
Thank you. I guess there's no more questions or no more comments. That's it.
All right, we
Thanks,
appreciate
everybody.
everybody joining.